When a heavy bomber hits an advanced fighter, it can be considered a bomber in general. However, there is always an exception. In the early days of the Pacific War, a United States military UAV was targeted by 3 Japanese temporary fighters. But as a result, not only was this bomber not shot down, but it also eliminated the 3 temporary fighters, while the bomber was in a coma. Even the memory of the 3rd temporary fighter was erased by the bomber, creating a miracle in the history of the air war. This is not a myth, but real history from the Second World War. Pay attention, the video is a bit long. Little friends in the pit, quickly light up the smoke, let's continue. Finally, back to May 8, 1942, in the highlands of Papua New Guinea, 8 UAVs were bombed by Japanese Air Force aircraft. After the mission was over, they were on the way back. At one of the bomber's airfields, pilot Stanley felt Vejtasa made an unexpected turn. It seemed insignificant at first glance, but cold sweat immediately broke out. He looked up and saw a group of Japanese guerrilla fighters above him, shouting to the bomber's group to chase him over. It should be noted that the bomber, without any fighter aircraft escorting it, was facing the advanced Japanese guerrilla fighters as if it were Gaoyang being reformed. Just thinking about it, Vejtasa heard the sound of a temporary machine gun attack. He quickly drove the bomber away from the team and rushed down, trying to distance himself from the enemy. When he looked back, he saw the 3 anti-aircraft bombers being hit, trailing long smoke and falling into the sea. He hurriedly opened the door and ran away at the fastest speed. He knew that the temporary machine gun would catch up with him soon. However, he was worried about what would come next. A temporary machine gun still found him and chased him. Because he knew that the US military's unmanned bomber had a rear machine gun, he didn't dare to chase him. He only flew to his front with a high-speed machine gun. Then he made a quick turn and flew to the opposite side of Vejtasa. The enemy had no choice. Vejtasa and his bomber could only face the enemy from the front. For the unmanned .50 front machine gun could not be compared to the Japanese military's high-speed machine gun. But at this moment, Vejtasa had an idea. At this time, the 2 planes were closer and closer to each other. At almost the same time, the 2 sides fired together. The bullet grazed past the side of Vejtasa's fuselage, and Vejtasa firmly held the rocket in his hand, striving to make the same movement. As the distance got closer and closer, the 2 planes finally crossed each other. Vejtasa looked up and even saw the face of the other side. Vejtasa shouted loudly at the machine gunner behind him and said, "Frank, look at you." The machine gunner behind him didn't say a word and shot at Vejtasa's butt. Vejtasa's speed was too fast and he flew out of sight in an instant. But at this time, another temporary fighter was chasing him from behind. Vejtasa was not alone. At the top of the front, another temporary fighter was flying in front of him. They were planning to take down this old American plane. It was almost impossible to face a one-on-one battle against a temporary fighter. Besides, they were surrounded by 2 temporary fighters. Vejtasa was thinking about how to deal with them in his mind.
So long.
Serious. Vejtasa calmly said to the machine gunner behind him, "Frank, let's give these birthmarks a look." As soon as the machine gunner executed an emergency brake and simultaneously veered left, the plane's speed suddenly decreased, allowing the pursuing plane to pass by. When the machine gunner passed by, they suddenly accelerated and chased after the machine gunner. At this moment, their maneuver was successful. Vejtasa leaned his butt against the machine gunner's back, and the machine gunner hit the pilot of the gunner. The bullet hit the pilot of the machine gunner, and the bullet pierced the pilot of the machine gunner. The pilot of the machine gunner dragged the long flame down. Looking at the Japanese plane flying down, Vejtasa and Flanky were not happy enough. From the top, another plane flew in. In other words, the butt of Vejtasa's machine gunner was trouble. The Vejtasa can only control the fuselage and avoid the attack. Fortunately, the fuselage of the bomber is thick, and the bullet hit the fuselage, and it was not hit by the fuselage. But the HG-1 was also included in the 3rd series. The Vejtasa is unyielding. What are you afraid of? The only thing that can be done at the moment is to try to avoid the attack of 2 fighters. Vejtasa is controlling the plane and shouting to the back of the bomber, "Frank, attack quickly! She saying, but he didn't get a response. At this time, Frank found out that he had been hit. He was already pregnant at that time. For no reason, Vejtasa could only control the flying around the front and rear of the aircraft to avoid the attack. Although the 20 series aircraft were poor in pursuit, with Vejtasa's high flight technology and the skin and flesh of the fuselage, they were never shot down. So the 20 series pilots were a little disappointed. They decided to split up and add more aircraft from 2 positions. This is exactly what Vejtasa was waiting for. When only 10 series pursues them, Vejtasa is relieved. The opportunity has come. So once again, the car came in a hurry, then drifted around and used the high speed of the 0 series plane to turn directly to the back of the 0 series plane. Then, without saying a word, pressed the fire button against the butt of the 0 series plane. Switching to a low series Japanese plane was not so lucky. After a while, the plane fell to the ground. Now there is only the last one left. It just bites Vejtasa and doesn't let go. But this little devil is obviously smart. It prevents the old American plane from falling to the ground. So it didn't increase the horsepower too much, but kept the same speed as it did. Vejtasa had no choice but to try to evade Lin's pursuit by moving left and right. But she suddenly found that Lin didn't shoot at her. What's going on? Are there no more bullets? Lin was getting closer and closer to the bomb. At this time, Mikasa suddenly realized that this little girl didn't have any bullets, but she wanted to strike with force. So she stepped on the gas pedal to the floor, trying to escape from Lin's stubborn pursuit. But Lin's speed is faster, and she can always catch up easily. When Mikasa thought the Japanese didn't have any bullets, she gave up her left and right movement. At this time, she saw Lin's plane suddenly shooting at the rear of the bomber. This cunning Japanese, Mikasa scolded him in his heart, and then controlled the plane to fly again according to the S-line. He knew that this would not work, and he wanted Lin to overtake him so that he would have a chance. But every time Mikasa made an emergency brake, the pilot seemed to know his intention and was always able to slow down immediately, maintaining the same position as the bomber. He couldn't do anything about it, and the chase continued. He couldn't shake off the pilot for the moment, which made Mikasa anxious. Mikasa began to operate the plane like a gluttonous snake, weaving left and right, and the agile pilot also maneuvered with Mikasa repeatedly. Many times they almost collided when they crossed paths. At that moment, Mikasa could even see the face of the Japanese pilot. Mikasa had a bold thought in her mind as she looked at the Japanese pilot who was looking back at her. She turned around and looked at the Japanese pilot. When the Japanese pilot crossed the intersection with her again, Mikasa took the opportunity to control the plane and crashed directly onto the Japanese pilot. After a fierce crash, Mikasa saw a memory of the Japanese pilot and stabbed the Japanese pilot's body. The Japanese pilot's body was torn open in an instant. At that moment, Mikasa thought she was going to die, but her instinctive sense of control was hard to believe. She found that her plane could actually continue to fly. When she looked down, she saw that the plane was dragging the long smoke and fell to the bottom. Mikasa was so excited that she couldn't believe she could actually survive. When she looked down, she couldn't find any other Japanese planes, so she took a deep breath. When the bomber hit the fighter, people seemed to think that the bomber was finished. But it may be luck, or maybe it's his high-level skills. A case where a fighter was defeated by a slow-moving bomber is not seen in the history of human war, but Vejtasa did it. After the war, Stanley Winfield became the center of Vejtasa and obtained the 2nd Marine Cross Medal for his brave performance. This is also the only one in the history of the U.S. Navy. The bomber and the fighter both received the Marine Cross Medal.